I have already mentioned in the last episode the ancient origin of the carnival and the reason why it found fertile ground in Venice, in an open society that tolerated well, at certain times of the year, the upheaval of the rules of which it was founded. So let's see how it was celebrated and the festivities that took place in the city. The Venice Carnival has always stood out for the pomp and richness of its costumes. The fashion of dressing up was so deep-rooted that it was also practiced in June during the Senza festival, the most heartfelt in the city, but also in October for the opening of the theatre season. The actual carnival, however, coincided with the end of the Christmas festivities and led to the period of penance linked to Lent and Easter. During the 6 weeks, there were not many masks used, and this was mainly linked to the possibility of giving everyone the same freedoms, regardless of gender, social class, or reputation, thanks to the anonymity that all masks, identical to each other, could offer. Here are the most commonly used ones. The bauta. This costume is made up of several parts: the tabarro or cloak and the actual mask, called larva. Its peculiarities were many. It had no ribbons to wear it, and the shape of the mouth allowed both to eat and drink without the need to take it off, and to modulate the voice, making the person who wore it completely unrecognizable. The whole was completed by a tricorn hat, which fastened the mask to the face and could also serve as a support. The moretta or mute. This mask worn by Venetian women was a mixture of seduction and practicality. Black in color and also without ribbons, it allowed it to be worn quickly thanks to the help of a button that had to be held between the lips to prevent speaking and gave that aura of mystery that made courtship even more seductive. The nyaga. This mask with the vague shape of a cat was worn together with a greengrocer's dress by those who practiced homosexual prostitution. The origin of the name derives from the sounds that these boys emitted, which replicated the female voices like a meow. We must not confuse these masks with those used on the stages of the Commedia dell'arte, where Harlequin, Colombina, Pantalone, and others were the protagonists, which over the years have mixed with tradition. The organization of the carnival was a serious matter, given the international appeal, and for this reason, the Compagnia della Calza, that can be translated as the Sock Fellas, was called, which was in charge of the organization of some theatrical and aquatic shows, regattas, and momarie, performances that contrasted vices and virtues. It was made up of Venetian nobles, and the name derives from the colors of the socks that the different companies had to wear. But what were the most important events that took place, those that remain and those that have unfortunately disappeared? The festivities open with the Feast of Marys, an historical pageant that recalls the custom in vogue until the 9th century of blessing 12 girls of the most beautiful marriageable age, but coming from the less affluent families. These girls were called Marys to symbolize their purity, and each was associated with a patrician family that provided jewelry to be exhibited during the parades and a dowry to be able to get married. In 973, during the blessing at the Cathedral of St. Peter in Castello, some Dalmatian pirates entered the city and kidnapped them. The Venetians managed to free them, and to evoke the fact, they built wooden puppets called Marie de Tola or Wooden Marie, or more simply, the term marionettes was coined. Since the year 2000, this tradition has been rediscovered. The Mary is chosen among the most beautiful Venetian girls and has the honor of opening the festivities. Il volo dell'angelo, or flight of the angel, that originally was the flight of the Turk, was celebrated on Fast Thursday. The name derives from an episode dating back the mid-16th century, when a young Turkish artist managed to walk on a rope from a boat moored at the pier to the bell tower of St. Mark's and from there to the Doge's palace, where he paid homage to the Doge. From that year on, various tight-roped walkers performed, until 1759, when it ended in tragedy. From the following year, it was decided to replace the acrobat with a papier-mâché dove that threw a riot of confetti on the cheering crowd. Since 2001, the celebration has moved to the first Sunday of Carnival, and the winner of the Feast of the Marie flies above St. Mark's Square. Venice was famously divided into two factions: the Nicolotti, fishermen, who had as their reference the church of San Niccolò dei Mendicoli, and the Castellani from Castello district, famous for being workers at the Arsenale shipyards. Carnival offered the perfect opportunity to diffuse hostilities through Goliardic challenges such as the Trials of Hercules, the Human Pyramids, or group boxing matches at the top of the Bridge of Fists, known as Ponte dei Pugni. Bulls have always played a very important role during Carnival. Throughout the period, real challenges were held in the main squares with oxen, which were tied up and endured by specially trained dogs. The aim was to make them nervous and fight with the ropes until the poor animal fell exhausted to the ground. This seems to be where the term "taking the bull by the horns" comes from. At the end of the Carnival, 3 bulls were beheaded, symbolizing the end of the festivities. This recalls an ancient historical fact. In 1162, the Doge defeated and imprisoned the Patriarch of Aquileia and his allies who threatened Venice. To humiliate them, as ransom, they had to send a bull and 12 pigs for years, which were decapitated and distributed to the population. It seems that the Italian saying, "cut off the bull's head," derives from this tradition of closing the festivities. Carnival, now as then, ends on Fat Tuesday, on the eve of Ash Wednesday, which anticipates the beginning of the period of abstinence of Lent in view of Easter.